Welcome,
Hi,
Leitner
Chris. Welcome.
Laz.
Hi
I,
there,
I
Ted.
think I
How you
think I think
doing?
you know I'm Leitner. He's Laz, as in Jim Lazovic, former NFL linebacker. To give him his proper, as it were, introduction each time, but new people might be listening around the country who knew of him when he was with the Detroit Lions for several years, and of course with the Chargers. He does need no introduction here in San Diego, and
How are
finished up with
you?
the Green Bay Packers. And can you hear me, Jim? Everything okay?
Loud and clear. You sound great. I love when you're talking about me, Ted. Of
So
all
that,
the topics you choose
you
to
know,
talk about, when you talk about me, it's my favorite.
I appreciate that. What's fascinating to me, I have friends in Washington who were in that first administration of what's his face, Trump,
Yeah.
and they found out that in doing papers and preparing papers that he's supposed to read, which he never does, and verbally giving him instructions that he never listens unless he hears his name. If you're talking
Oh,
about him, then the ego goes boom, and then he'll awake, get out of his snooze, his slumber, whatever. But you have to keep saying his name. So, not that you're anywhere near in that situation with ego or mental difficulties, because you're not. But if I'll mention your name every once in a while and throw you a cookie.
Ted, Ted, you do a nice job introducing me and telling people a little bit about my background. We should talk more about your background. The fact that
I have none.
you didn't just hatch from an egg one day and say,
I got a big butt. That's my background. And, that's all it's going to be. The thing is, Jim, I hate to complain, but it's something that every person out there, my voice has been strained, and I'll tell you why. I didn't know this, but I did know I've been moving for the last 6 days. And I had movers take the big stuff, and I wanted to save money, so I packed everything up in boxes and bags, and I moved all that little stuff in a little rental U-Haul truck that I got. And the exhaustion level, I did it 4 years ago, and I thought I will never, ever do this again. And I'm sure I am preaching to the choir, because everybody here has been involved in a move, multiple moves, and I would prefer any kind of surgery except heart. You know what I mean? Any procedure, as doctors call it,
yeah,
or operation. I'll take oral surgery, and that's what almost knocks everybody out in terms of fear and dreading. Moving at my age is just, I'll never be able to do it again. So I told my oldest kids, hey, listen, here's the plan. I am going to die while I'm in this house now. So you guys will have to clean it up and move it at the end. But that's my plan. I just can't move again. So my doctor told me years ago, when it wasn't about moving, it was just about if you get depressed or something like that, it affects your vocal cords and they sound strained because of the depression. So this was such exhaustion that it actually made me not just, oh my God, I can't take another step, but it depressed me looking at the 47 boxes and bags that were still there. It's like this stuff you keep since I moved 4 years ago, never touched it, still where it is. I looked at it. I don't want to throw it out for whatever sentimental reasons, the kids' stuff or whatever. And it literally depressed me to know how many more hours I had to be there at the old place.
yeah.
And it's horrible. So my voice is strained because of that. And I used to not know what that is about, but now I know what it's about.
Yeah.
So, Jim, my background is ex-broadcaster, retired,
Yes.
San Diego Padres, San Diego State Aztec football and basketball, Philadelphia Eagles, the Oklahoma State University Cowboys, the University of Oklahoma Sooners. Did I say Philadelphia Eagles preseason football? Yes. And and talk shows, Channel 8 Sports, the CBS affiliate in San Diego, and talk shows on KFMB radio, talk shows on 1090 radio. And that's, I think, pretty much worked at Channel 3 for Post Newsweek in Hartford, Connecticut in 75 and 76, while I did the University of Connecticut play-by-play for football and basketball on television at the very same time. And I think that's pretty much my body of work with other talk shows at 1090 in San Diego.
Let me interject.
And
Let me interject.
that's pretty much it. That's it. I
Teddy,
miss
listen.
every single part of it, Jim. Every bit of it. Now, you, after retiring, go to NBC in San Diego. How often do you say, dang, I would love to be working on it today, doing it again, doing the sports tonight. Yes or no?
I got the hang of this retirement thing, Ted. I'm good at doing nothing. And
I don't hear Jim.
Ted, I got the hang of this retirement thing.
Could be that Jim didn't hear me either.
I can hear you.
Do not adjust your set.
I can hear Ted. But do not adjust your set.
These things are live, and when you're live, stuff happens. You see that T-shirt? Blank happens. Blank just happened.
Yeah.
But really early. I was all enthused.
Yeah, I don't know why you're not getting
I'll try to continue to be enthused as best I possibly can.
I'll be back.
Yeah, let's move again real soon. And I'll be honest with you, I had some beautiful houses that I was so privileged to have when I was successful, as opposed to now. And I did not plan. I did not have an investment advisor. I should have. I was very busy and making good money, so I thought, I'll be fine. I'll make this money forever. No, you won't, and didn't. And so in this particular case, when you're not planning, you want to have one of those houses and put it aside for your retirement. But I never planned on retirement, like I said, because I thought that I would go on and on and on, like Harry Carey, my buddy, into his 80s, Jack Buck into his 80s, and Chick Hearn into his 80s, and a lot of them, like Jerry Coleman, the late 80s. And I thought, well, I'll deal with that. I should have some money left over. I'll deal with that. But when you've been divorced 4 times, as Robin Williams used to say, alimony is from the Latin word for all the money. And so now I realize I don't have very much. I can't afford, after making all that, to buy a house. So I've had to rent for the first time the place 4 years ago, and I'm moving to another place now. And that's what's caused me the multiple moves, because I wasn't smart enough and I was very conservative, as my father taught me. Put it in the bank, put it in the bank, put it in the bank. If you sell a house, get another one. But don't be a landlord. Don't keep that. And that was in my mind, and he was wrong, because San Diego real estate was a great way to make some money, as I did a couple of times. So the problem was, as they say in the Army, the 4 Ps: piss poor, prior planning. And that's what I did. And so I don't own a home. I miss my home so much. And when you live in an apartment this big in New York City, and it's all concrete, no grass for the most part, and you live out here and you're lucky enough to succeed in San Diego, and you have a lawn. I had a swimming pool, which as a kid, I used to think, wow, that house has got a swimming pool in the backyard. So all these things I lived, I loved, and it was wonderful, totally wonderful. But now I don't have it. And so I've had to move at an age when you shouldn't be moving. And I'm sure I don't know if it's a good workout or bad for your health. I don't know. But that's where I am. As Popeye said, I am what I am, because that's where I am in terms of that. I'm not whining to our audience. I'm just explaining, because many of them have probably made the same financial mistakes I have, including divorce, which is never easy. And so here I am financially, renting a place, renting another place. And I moved from Penasquitos to Rancho Bernardo. So that's what I've been doing.
So Ted,
I hear Jimmy.
You're telling your story, and I'm listening and trying to unmute my microphone.
No wonder I couldn't hear you. You got to take that mute.
That's my defense.
You got to take that mute switch off.
Yeah, I see the little microphone with the slash through it. And thinking,
it's much better. It's much better, because we had those for every Padre broadcast, Aztec broadcast, which you call a cough button, as you know, not telling you anything, but a cough button or a switch that would turn it off so you could cough, or say, this guy couldn't hit the fastball because the light depended on it. You say something like that, like in who was it? My friend Keith.
My friend Keith. A piece of that pizza.
My friend Keith Hernandez, a great first baseman at this time, and Keith, he works for the Mets long term, doing analysis. So he thought he had pushed the cough button, and this batter, for the Mets. I honestly, it's not that I'm protecting him. I don't remember. Yeah. But Keith thinks he's off the air by having his finger on the cough button, which wasn't working that day. There was something dirty in the little box there, and it wasn't working. So I'll clean this up a little bit. So Keith hits the button to say to his play-by-play guy, This guy's swinging like he's under friggin' water.
Ooh.
It's in the bat speed. And it gets out on the air. The Padres are working. I'm not on the broadcast. It's Jerry Coleman and Bob Chandler. And I'm trying to think exactly what was said, and I'll try to, if I can clean it up on the fly. And Jerry pushed the cough button and said, "Hey, Bob, speak up. Don't be a shy little shit. Speak up." and he says to Bob, "What did you want?" And Bob says, "Jerry, I just wanted to tell you that the cough button is not working today." But it was, just to see the look on Jerry's face, just like Jerry's face. So without the cough buttons, Bob and I are working, and we go to a commercial break in the old KFME radio days, and the kid back there at the board operator, as they call him, he's got to go, man. And when you got to go, you got to go. So he goes to the bathroom, and the speaker of the game is piped into the bathroom. So this poor guy is doing, as we used to say in New York when we were little kids in grade school, you had to put up your hand to go to the bathroom, and you had to put up a number 1 or a number 2 to tell the teacher what you were going to do. And I've always wondered, from a privacy standpoint, what frickin' business of it was hers that to tell them what you were going to do when you got to the bathroom. And I was very shy, and all the girls and all the boys are in class, and what's it their business whether you're doing a 1 or a 2? So to make it a short story, this guy was going for number 2, Dookie, as it were, going for a Dookie. And he's listening to me throw, and that's the score, 3-2 Padres in the third inning. This is the San Diego Padres Radio Network. And we're still on the air because he literally can't get out of the bathroom, out of the stall to get back to the board to go to the commercial break. And he can hear us, Bob and I, talking, and he can't do much about it. We find out later that Bob's wife, Pat, is listening at the house. And in the $6 Million Man, when he starts running, but they put it in slow motion to show how fast he is. Remember that show? Yeah. With Lee Majors, was it, or something? Yeah. And that shows your speed by slowing it down. And she's running to the phone to call the studio to warn the guys they're on the air, because she can still hear me and Bob talking. So during that time, Bob says to me, "You ever drive a Toyota FX?"
Oh no!
And I said no. He said, "Well, the Toyota dealers gave me a Toyota Supra last year. And it was decked out and had every bell and whistle possible. It was just a really cool car, like a little sports car. And then for this year, they were nice enough to donate it to me and give it to me to drive for the year, because they're a big sponsor of the Toyota dealers on the Padre broadcast." This was in the old KFME days. And he says, this FX, I mean, I didn't ask. I didn't want to assume. I hoped I was getting the Supra again, but I didn't. And I got this FX, and what a piece of shit. This is all on the air. This is all on the air because this poor guy is in an automatic explosive Dookie and cannot get out of the bathroom to get to the board. And Pat is just panicking and calling the hotline, as it were, the phone that goes right in to the studio. But of course, the kid in the bathroom is the one who'll be answering that phone. So nobody's answering it. And Bob and I are now on the air, having said a bad word. Thank God it was Bob instead of me.
Yeah.
Because he had been there longer. I would have been I would have been fired instead of him. But nobody.
I got to tell you about a car deal one time.
Yeah.
I was representing a company in Detroit, and I would show up at their dealerships from time to time and just visit with the salesmen and the customers. And it was a Ford dealership, and I was driving one of their products. So they wanted to sign me up for another year, and they said, "We'd love to have you come back and do the same thing." I said, "Well, yeah, sure. What kind of car do you want this year?" I said, "I want a Corvette." They said, "Well, Jim, that's a straight away." I know, but if I'm going to do it again, I want a Corvette. And they said, "Okay, Here's the thing. When you come to the dealership, you have to park a block away and walk to the dealership and then for your appearance. I said, yeah, I can do that.
I do that.
I'm young and in shape. So I kind of embarrassed by the audacity, but I drove my Corvette.
I think that's because I had a similar deal with Marvin K. Brown, and it was with Jim Brown and the late
great outfit. Huh? Great outfit.
Oh yeah, and the late Grunstrom, who I loved him and Jim Brown and Jill Brown and Jennifer, their daughter runs Marvin K. Brown, and just a situation where in the contract when I was going to start their advertising, I was allowed at their largesse. So like you said, it said car of your choice. So like you, I could have said, I'd like a Lamborghini or like a Corvette convertible, if at all possible. But I wasn't smart enough like you, but I still had my choice of, Buick and a GMC truck, and then Hummer. They kind of started carrying Hummer. So I got to drive the Hummer 1, like the military vehicle, the H1, when Schwarzenegger and a couple of other Hollywood stars were the only guys that had them at that time for the most part. And there was one at Marvin K. Brown, but I didn't drive it full time. But this thing was such that you could sit there and you couldn't even, if you let the wheel go and lean all the way over, you couldn't come close to touching the other door. It was so wide. You know who had one? May he rest in peace. I know you loved him like I did. Tiaina Junior Seau drove the Hummer 1 for a while. Yeah. And it was just a tank. Man. It was just incredible.
Terrific athlete, had such a great attitude, was so intent on helping other people. With his position, he was able to, help his community, help his family, and it's such a great attitude.
A heartbreak that none of us in this community, losing Tony Gwynn, losing Jerry Coleman, but Jerry had a full life and multiple careers and great health during that life. But that's different. But these guys were young. These guys were kids to me, and that includes Caminetti, of course, Ken Caminetti. If you haven't noticed, I have the Ken Caminetti shirt on. Nice. That I wear proudly all the time. And I love this guy like a brother. And I don't get close to players too often because I think, when you have to say, hey, he should have gotten that ball. I'm sorry. You can't see the game. I'm on radio. You're on radio. But I have to tell you, so-and-so should have had that. He got a bad jump or whatever. And you better be accurate and know your stuff to know that he did, or you better not say. So I tried to abide by that. And Jerry Coleman taught me a lot of that stuff. Yeah. That it's like the line when Richie Ashburn of the Whiz Kids of the Phillies, a great man, just a great man. And I didn't get to know him until he retired and became a broadcaster doing color for Harry Callis in Philadelphia. And so in his first game after retirement and Richie was just a Hall of Famer. I mean, great speed, he could hit and use the bat, just do wonderful things. And in his first ball game, working with Harry, now he's a non-player, he's a broadcaster, and midway through the game, he says to Harry, "Hey, Harry, this game's easy up here." That's the mindset that Jerry would teach me. Hey, you're a broadcaster, you know a little, you'll know a lot by the time you get done, but it's really easy up here. It's not that much more difficult in that batter's box. And at second base, where the ball's coming at you at 110 miles an hour, we know now with the radar guns. And Jerry always taught me, don't assume never assume it's easy, because the game is incredibly difficult. Always give the player the benefit of the doubt. Right. And even the situation.
And Ted, that's beautiful advice, because you think about the game of football, and it is difficult to be in the right position. I'll speak as a defensive player. Every play is different. Your line charge is different. If you're a lineman, if you're a linebacker relying on that lineman, you have to know where the lineman's going, so you know where to go. And then there's pass coverage, and there's play action passes that want to suck you into that line of scrimmage. It's just incredible how easy the great ones make it look. And Tony Gwynn in baseball, obviously. Yeah. I mean, it was
And that goes at all levels, at all sports, at all levels, and show business. And I don't care if you're an electrician. Joe Nelson, show producer. When you make your job look easy and it's not, that's when you know that these are the good guys, and there's a level up here. And I've always been, I think I might have mentioned to you, I've always been intrigued by greatness. You know what I mean? No matter where it is. I was intrigued by Secretariat.
Right.
And it could be a race car. Though I'm not into racing, I'm not into horse racing, but the machine itself, the horse itself, and the athlete and their greatness. And the same thing with singers and entertainers and comedians. The great ones are just a study to me. As to
even hockey players.
Yeah. Well, I knew you would say that. No, of course, hockey is an exception. But that's not true. Because those guys, Gretzky and Lemieux, and going back to Bobby Hull, and going back to Boston Bruins, great defenseman. Whenever there's a 30 for 30 or any kind of a ESPN Classic or what have you, on the great ones, I'm mesmerized. I'm just mesmerized. When Secretariat ran in the final leg of that Triple Crown that he won in the Belmont, and I forget the name of the horse, who was they thought just below a generational talent, just an unbelievably great horse. And Secretariat almost lapped and left this great horse behind. I'll never forget in the movie Secretariat, where the look on the trainer of that horse and then the trainer of Secretariat, the look on their face, we're seeing the impossible. You can't do this to that great horse. And yet Secretariat is just on his way with like a jet stuck up his butt. Yeah. And friends of mine in Louisville at the HAS, I believe is the station, when they would go to the farm, Keeneland Farms, to watch him in retirement, and he'd be walking along, and just this giant red horse, I mean, just so big. And they would say when they came with a camera, he recognized, this may sound stupid, he recognized the camera. He recognized the media.
I believe that.
Because of greatness, when he would literally stand up straighter, and those incredible shoulder muscles would stand up, and his ears would go straight up. He recognized that the camera was looking at him. It's like he had ego, that he was a winner, and that he knew that. Okay. And then one final note, when he died, and they did an autopsy for him before they buried him, and not just in the ground, they buried him in a huge, lying on his side, they buried him in a huge casket that was custom made out of honor to this amazing, maybe the greatest of all time. And the autopsy, they said the average horse's heart is about 8 pounds, 8. Secretariat's was 18.
Yeah, wow.
Now there you get that heart, all that oxygenation and all that. I can run all day, man. I can get blood to my organs faster than all these other horses. Nobody knew that then. It's not illegal. He didn't take drugs. He just had an amazing physical capacity that helped him run forever. As Don Coryell used to say, run like a goddamn deer. Run like a goddamn deer.
I'm curious about the size of your heart, Ted, because you can talk forever.
Has nothing to do with it.
How big is your heart, Ted?
You know why Jim was like this? I knew Jim would be this way because Junior was like this. I used to call Junior Donnie for Don Rickles. Because players in clubhouses and locker rooms, they will put you down every time they see you. They will tease you, and it's part of the ritual. If you can't take it, get the hell out. And if you can give it, you better take it. And that's why I knew Jim by working with a player. Junior used to come in Fridays and Mondays and for the thing on Channel 8 and just put me down off the air, on the air. It was just, and the fans loved it. The viewers loved it. Yeah, put that big mouth down, Junior. You should have seen the letters he would get.
Yeah.
I knew you because you're used to a locker room, and that's what guys do.
That's exactly right. You mentioned the greatness of Secretariat. You mentioned Tony Gwynn, one of a kind. Junior Seau. I got to throw out another one of a kind, Dan Fouts. People don't understand.
What an interesting comment.
How complicated the offense was and how he had it perfected. You know, he would, you know, I've told this story a few times. As a defense, we would have to give him a look. So, you know, we'd have to impersonate whatever our team we were going up against. And they'd have cards for us. We just follow our directions. Whatever the card said, we do it. Dan knew the defense as well as we did, and we saw the cards. He would get up to that line of scrimmage. He would be able to recognize what we were doing, where we were supposed to be. One time I went the wrong way, and he started complaining like only Dan can complain, yelling and screaming like, get your head in the game. We're going to practice here. We got to get this thing straight. I said, Dan, Dan, I went where the card told me to go. What do you mean? I said, Coach. The coach had held up the wrong card. But Dan knew. I mean, the great ones are just that much above.
They know what everybody's assignment is.
Great
exactly
passer.
Right.
He could put zip on it, and he had the gray matter. And the great ones have the gray matter.
And I believe that. But did Don's Coryell's system make Dan, or did Dan make that system?
It was a nice synergy. Yeah, it was a nice synergy. I don't think that there were only a handful of quarterbacks with the capabilities of Dan Fouts to interpret the Coryell offense and Gibbs offense the way he did, and to make it as daunting and sophisticated.
That's the great answer. That's the great answer, because I thought Dan was, say, like a quarterback coming out of Oregon, that Dan was a 7. Okay, and I'm just picking a number, and I really think that if he didn't find Don and Don didn't find him after his holdout and all that stuff, that Eric Coryell might not have been to what it was, and Dan would not have gone from a 7 to a 9 as a quarterback. But that two together, like you said, the synergy was kismet.
Let me throw a couple of names out too. Joe Gibbs was the offensive coordinator. He had 10 Fouts. You had Coryell tutoring Gibbs and Fouts and Ernie Zampese. And Ernie Zampese was brilliant.
I love Zamp.
He kept his mouth shut. He just went about his business, but he understood that offense as well as anybody. And he was a big factor in why that offense was so successful. One of the most effective of all time.
Oh, no question. No question. I thought when Mike Martz had it going there with Oz Hakeem and all those guys up at St. Louis, that it was a great offense. But I would take Eric Coryell over every offense I have ever seen in the history of the National Football League when it came to passing.
Yeah. You think back to the Steeler teams, they had brute force and talent, and they could make things happen offensively. You got to hand it to them too, but you won all those Super Bowls. Now, what we do with all those rings, Ted? I just wanted one ring. One would have been enough. You got guys with 5 rings in Pittsburgh.
I know what you're saying, and I just. But how much of that, by the way, because you mentioned Don's system, the so-called passing tree, with all the option routes and all those things, and Dan had it up here, and all the players would react based on what the defense would react. Early on, I wonder how much of an effect that was. I related to when I was at Oklahoma doing the Oklahoma games, and Barry Switzer was the head coach, and Chuck Fairbanks, who preceded him, had just put the wishbone in. After Texas did, Oklahoma put it in, and some of those games with Greg Pruitt and Joe Washington and those guys, Jim, it was a track meet. A track meet added to the fact, not just the Oklahoma speed and the option, and Jack Mildren being just, like you said, like Dan, a brilliant triple option quarterback. Jack was so smart and such a good man. But at that time, the coach would say, these defenses are trying to adjust. They don't even know what the hell we're doing. So that's why we're winning. That's why we're scoring 60 points. And it's a track meet. How much of that early on was the NFL defenses not knowing what Don's teams were doing and able to stop them?
Yeah, good point. But, I still have to marvel at Dan's capacity to run that offense. And everybody else on that offense had to know, too, what was going on. And they would respond to the defense. So Dan is in his back pedal reading the defense, where he says a pre-snap read, quite possibly.
I can see him backpedaling right now.
Oh, yeah.
It almost breaks me up, Jim. It does. That team, it's like we said, losing Tony Gwynn and losing Caminetti, and we lost that team.
Yeah.
And it's not the team. It's not the team thing. it's all those players that you knew and I knew and really, from my standpoint, respected so much. And they were always pissed at me for saying some wise ass thing on the air. But I love these guys. I love
you.
Yes, true, true. And I have dreams about that. I honestly do. Like I told you, the dreams I have about not knowing what's next on the show because nobody would tell me. Usually I would tell them, and then nobody would tell me on my nightmares now. And I have nightmares about the Chargers, and I'm at practice, and guys are making nasty comments to me. Yeah. it never goes away. It doesn't. But I thought.
Ted, I need to give a shout out to the defense too, because I was part of a defensive unit with Jerry Glanville was a defensive coordinator, and he went on to become a head coach elsewhere and had a good career. But our defensive call in the huddle was automatic. The offense would come to the line of scrimmage. The middle linebacker would call out what the line charge was going to be and then what the secondary coverage was going to be, all in the span of time that the offense is setting up and lining their play. So when you make comments about dumb football players, you never said that, but I think back to these guys who were so smart, who could figure out, okay, I'd tell them what the formation was and they knew where they were going to go. And we all did. There were 11 of us. We were on the same page. And how sophisticated that was at the time for me, because you know this from having played ball, that once the huddle breaks, you know what you're going to do. They're in a split formation. There's pass coverage and a line charge. But there's so much sophistication in the way the game is approached that the minutia that is underappreciated, I think, by a lot of people.
Very good point. Very good point. And I think when you start naming LT and Dan Fouts and Wes Chandler and J.J. Jefferson and all those guys, I think normally, because you brought up Dan, normally Dan would be ignored. He would not be listed among the great skill players, and so forth, or the great linebackers or junior, and that wouldn't come to mind. The one thing that they probably wouldn't know either, Nick Canepa told me one time, UT columnist, and he said, let me tell you this, Dan Fouts was the toughest football player I ever met.
Yep.
And people would not think of that when they thought of Dan, but Dan physically and mentally and as a leader was just like rock.
Dan would put a strain on the ice machine. He'd have so many ice bags on his body after a game, and all week after practice, he'd get ice in his knees, his elbow, his ribs. There was one year his ribs were really in bad shape, and they did their darndest to try to cover it up. But other teams knew, and they tried to take shots at his ribs. And I was going to say one of the toughest football players I know, but he could be the toughest football player I know. I know Butkus. I never knew Dick Butkus, but I was on the field with him one time. My rookie year was his final year in the league, and I got to see him in action, and I was mesmerized. It was just, I loved being that close up and getting a look at him in action.
I can just imagine, because I was in Philadelphia and I did the Eagles preseason games along with the television sports work. And I forget which assistant coach had been the lead blocker on whatever team. And they were playing the Bears, and they had done something with a certain cut block or whatever, which was legal back then, to get Butkus with the lead blocker. Right. And then score the touchdown in goal-to-goal situations in the red zone, or the gold zone, as Marty Schottenheimer used to call it. It's the gold zone. Yeah. And they run the play, and the guy who's supposed to cut and block Butkus, it doesn't get done. It doesn't get done. So they come to the sideline, and the assistant that I'm dealing with now was a player back then, and the coach asked him, "What happened? What happened to the lead blocker? He's supposed to make the initial block, and we get killed out there. What happened to him?" And the running back says, "I don't know. I think Butkus ate him." I love that. Okay. I love that, because you talked about Fouts.
Let me give a shout out to a couple of Detroit Lions, though.
Yes, sir.
Joe Schmidt, who was an All-American at Pitt.
Did you know him?
Joe Schmidt had an incredible career and went on to be head coach of the Lions for a while.
Number 56 of the Lions, right?
Yeah. And then Mike Lucci, who was the middle linebacker before I got there. So I happened to I saw Joe Schmidt one time. He didn't hang around much because he had been the head coach of the Lions. By the time I got there, he had been gone for a couple of years, and he was kind of low key and keep out of sight, let the new coaching staff do its thing. He was so thoughtful, and he had been such a good player and coach. And I saw him at a function, and I went over and I introduced myself, and I said, you're my dad's favorite player, and I'm thrilled to say hello to you. And he goes, he said, what's your name? Lazovic. Yeah. You know what?
Nice.
When you first started, you weren't worth a shit, but you're getting a little bit better.
See what I mean about locker rooms? They never let your head get big. They never let you go. I know it all. I can do it all. I'm a young player. And it's like, you better shut your mouth. It's like they used to say, kids should be seen and not heard.
Yeah. Okay. So
I was a kid, but not now.
I have to tell you about 3 months later, I got a call. Hey kid, you're figuring it out. Keep it up. That was
nice.
Really nice to follow up with a
that
call.
would be something to cherish.
Yeah, that was
from Joe Schmidt. Because those linebackers, those
yeah. Anyway.
Those middle linebackers in that era, Sam Huff with the New York Giants, and these guys were not fast. I mean, Butkus, people who played against Butkus said, don't think because he was so big and the way he kind of walked and rocked like that, but he can move pretty well. I don't know what they timed him, but he can come after you. He's a lot faster.
The other one we shouldn't overlook from that era is Bill Berge in Cincinnati. He was an outstanding middle linebacker.
I got to know Bill Berge when I was doing the Eagles games. One of the finest gentlemen. He's gone now. Wore number 66 with the Eagles. And I'll never forget, Bill got hurt and he was in the hospital. And I went to the hospital to do the 5 o'clock sports live in Bill's room. And it was typical Berge. Ted, come on in. Come on in. I don't want to intrude. Oh, come on. You're not intruding. Come on. And he was so gracious and so wonderful. And that's what I mean when I talk about the Chargers. And I'm thinking about Russ Washington, Big Roo, and Moosey Wilkerson, and Masick, and all those guys. And it's it's heartbreaking that they get old and die. It's more heartbreaking that the entire team got in moving vans and went north and broke our collective hearts.
All right, and I'll blame a lot of different reasons and things. I'll never blame the fans for the reason this team moved. The fans.
No, they bought the tickets, man. They bought the tickets. And they still watch on TV.
I know, and the fans are that's one thing about our town. We really have some terrific sports fans who support their teams. Yeah. Should we talk indoor soccer? Speak about it.
Indoor soccer. You know what happened? I went a couple of years ago up at, by Delmar, and the little shopping center there where the Ralph's shopping center. It's the big Ralph's flagship place, and on Delmar Heights. And I go upstairs by the movie theater. Across the way from the movie theater is a Greek restaurant. And I'm not a big fan of Greek, but food personally. But I look in the window and I swear that it's George Katakalidis who played for the indoor soccer team.
Yeah.
And so I go in to see, and I say, George. He says, Ted, long time no see, whatever. And we're talking about it. He says, I got a bone to pick with you.
Of course.
Typical ex-Padre, ex-Charger, ex-soccer, whatever. How come? He said, because we had a game, and I tuned in the news on Channel 8 that night, and I had scored, and I went to Julie V, and we went to high five, and it was like a Three Stooges routine. We went to high five, and we missed each other. we missed hands in the highlights. And then you came back on the set, and you said, come on. Can somebody, when these foreigners come here, across the land, across the water, can somebody teach them how to high five? Can somebody teach them how we do things here in America? For God's sakes, I'm tired of watching these people embarrass themselves. And George said, I was watching that night. Says your battery is doing something here.
You're doing great,
I've
Ted.
been watching that.
Don't stop.
I was watching that night. And I was so pissed at you for saying that. And you said, well, George, I was teasing, right? Yeah, I know it now, but I didn't know it then.
Yeah. Okay, listen. You mentioned Greek food. Athens Market downtown on Market Street. Athens Market on Market. I got to give a shout out to that was one of the go-to places between shows when I was working downtown. And I just wander over there, grab some Greek food, and the soccer players would every once in a while show up there, and I'd see them. Good group of guys. Boy, they could party. That indoor soccer team, they would win championships and party hardy. That was a good bunch of guys to follow. Didn't they? Oh, man, they were just so much fun. Double Deuce, Triple E, the one and only Julie V. Come on.
But those guys and Ron, the coach.
Oh, yeah. Newman. Newman.
Ron Newman. Nice to meet you. Ron Newman. And I remember we had a little 2 or 3 writers and me and another broadcaster meeting Ron in his first year. And just kind of a general question. One of the writers said, I got to be honest with you, I'm covering the team, but I've never, ever covered soccer. I don't think I know the game very well. Ron, is there a basic foundation or tenet that we should know for soccer? And Ron, tongue in cheek, says, yeah, here's the basic rule. If it moves, kick it. If it doesn't, kick it until it does. Ron had one of the great sense of humors of any coach I've ever been around. Just a great guy. But
I think
the talents on that team.
His team picked up on his attitude. His team reflected the attitude he had, which was, hey, might not be the biggest thing in the world, but to us it is. And we're going to make this happen. We're going to work our tails off.
And they did.
He had such a great attitude, and he dealt well with the media. I mean, it's, here's a secret for the coaches and players out there. It's not that tough. It's not that tough to be decent to the media. It isn't.
And I think, having you said that for me personally, from 1978 through all the Charger coaches, Aztec coaches for football and basketball, Padre managers, for the most part, I think have been, if you had to ask me a thumb or a Roger Ebert, Siskel and Ebert, give me a thumbs up and thumbs down. I don't know that I would give a thumbs down. I had big trouble with Al Luganville with the Aztecs.
Yeah.
And I think some of that was mine because his wife, Susie, told me that it was me. And she didn't like me. So maybe Al didn't like me. But I did not have any problem with Al. But I started with Claude. I come to first practice, and I replaced Ron Rena as the play-by-play guy of the Aztecs when I get here in 1978. I go to the first practice. Claude Gilbert sees me because I've been on Channel 8 a little while, and he walks over all the way across the practice field and introduces himself to me and says, Ted, anything you need? Any player you want me to get for you? Because I'm with a cameraman. Yeah. That's Claude Gilbert. Yeah. And I never saw that in my life. Right. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, University of Connecticut, you name it. I never saw that.
Well, I'm sure Joe Paterno would have done that. Oh, yeah, Joe Paterno would have done that.
Sure.
Well, you mentioned Ron Rena. I love when Ron would call mostly indoor soccer or whatever else he was working on from the sports arena. He'd go, it's just Ron Rena at the sports arena. I always like the sound of that. And
nice. Very nice.
Jim Laszlovic. Oh, he's a big.
And people ask me that during my time with the 30 years of football, basketball with the Aztecs, with not every time, but at least if they scored a lot, 2 or 3 or a few football touchdowns, I would say touchdown Aztecs, and that was not my call. I did that to honor Ron because he did it for years. And Ron is in the Aztec Hall of Fame. I have great respect, and I love Ron. Great sense of humor. And when I first got here, I had done some advertising for Ball Oldsmobile because Ron put me in touch with those people at Ball Oldsmobile down in National City. And so I thanked Ron and I really enjoyed and I felt bad. It's not my doing, but they had fired Ron before I was even hired to do Channel 8. And then the new guy wasn't here yet, so I was asked to do it in 1978 before the new guy got here. So I had a great time with Ron. And, Ron's famous moment was, I don't know if it was Texas State or where it was, but the Aztecs were playing. And like many stupid places that have the press box glassed in and the window doesn't open. Yeah. And so you're in there on night games and all you see are the reflection of the lights behind you and the reflection of yourself and the stadium lights. And it's It's really difficult. Really difficult. When I was young and could see well, I couldn't see well in those nighttime games. And Ron was berserk that this window would not open. So he made sure it opened. Closing would be a problem, but Ron made sure it opened. He got up, made sure everybody was cleared out, made sure nobody was sitting beneath them in the stands, and he threw his chair right through the window and broke it. Wow. And then used the legs to knock out the rest of it. And tell them to send me a bill. You don't put a goddamn glass in there because we can't see. It's too reflective. And they still do it. They still do it. They did it at a brand new stadium in Colorado State. First time I went there, couldn't open the window. And here's the window. And there's a panel, a pane, a big pane right in the middle. Right in the middle. So fortunately, if you're on wheels, you're going back and forth to see what's going on. The press box, newly remodeled at Utah State in Logan, Utah for football. Yeah. When you look down from the press booth for radio, you cannot see the end of the sideline. You have to stand up. If somebody's coming toward the sideline, you have to stand up every single time. They said they were going to sue the contractor, but they never did because they made a mistake. They screwed it up. So not people think it's easy to do it. It's not easy, but it's our job. But they do sometimes make it challenging with those glass press boxes. And you were there. You've done all those things. Right. And I had one thought just to go back to before I forget it in my little brain. How tough Dan Fouts was. We have a shoot of a crew that KFMB hires from Boston. Producer, director, cameraman, lighting man, going to make some big time Hudson and Bauer promotions for television and radio. They pay Dan. I shouldn't say that. They asked him, I'm not sure if they paid him or he volunteered, but Dan, on his day off, showed up and was going to be part of the commercials with me and Hudson and Bauer.
Dan Fouts.
And so the producer gets introduced to Dan. She knows who he is. And he says, okay, we'll be good in 5 minutes. Dan, put your uniform on and we'll get ready to do this. And right as soon as I hear that, I think, there's going to be trouble here. There's going to be trouble. So Dan goes like that, and he doesn't get the message. I get the message. I'm not saying anything. I'm not producing this. I got nothing. I'm just a hired hand. And then he says, no, Dan, I need you to put your uniform on for this commercial. The way I've got it written and blocked, you have to have a uniform on. No. Our friend Dan, don't tell him. Do maybe the Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid. Do a Sundance Kid, remember? When you tell him to get out of here. Yeah. No, tell him not to leave. If you don't tell him not to leave, he'll do the opposite. Right. Tell him not to leave, then he'll leave.
Don't put that uniform on.
Exactly. So do a Sundance Kid and tell Dan, all right, forget that uniform. But he doesn't. No, Dan, I need you to put the uniform on. I don't wear my blippity blip uniform on my day off, ever. And get this, Charlie, or whatever his name was, I ain't putting it on now. Now we're in a stalemate. What are we going to do here? We've got to do the TV commercials. We can do radio ones, but no TV. So I know that Dan is not a great fan of mine, even though we do the thing on Channel 8 Fridays and Mondays.
But wait, let me interject. You did become good friends.
Yes, we did. Good point.
Go ahead.
Yes, we did. Because most of the players, when they retire, they're older, more mature. I'm older, more mature. And I admit I was a loudmouth and so forth and comment. East Coast guy with a big opinion. And no player likes that.
It paid well, though, Ted. It paid well. It was good move.
It paid well, and I thought I aged well. And I started taking advice from people as to, hey, back off a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I told you with Jerry Coleman. You don't know everything that's going on out there. You don't. I'll never forget the time in Houston when Caminiti sat down and two other starters sat down, and then Tony Gwynn asked for the day off. But we were not told that Tony asked for the day off. So my comment on the air was, my God, already Caminiti's ready. It was a Sunday afternoon day game. So you're normally going to rest you guys and play your subs, your bench guys. But I thought that's too much. we're missing A, B, C, and then Tony picks a bad day to ask for his time off, after time off. So I find out afterwards in talking to Boach, boy, you had all those guys and then Tony didn't play. And Boach says, I sat him down. He needs a rest. I don't care. If we lose this one game, I'll have him for many more games later. You have to do that. You have to have, like they do in the NBA, player management, that sort of crap. But it's legitimate in baseball, of course, without any question. But for me to not know and act like Tony asked out, I was wrong. So I went to Tony and said, hey, man, I apologize. I thought you asked out. The word was you asked out. They didn't say it to us, but you asked out. I know you didn't. And so I'm going to correct that in the broadcast tonight. And of course, Tony says, I don't give a crap. That's the old. I know it's the same thing when John Miller of the Giants did something like that when, come on, Brain, get some names. I know you're old and decrepit. Philippe Alou. Philippe Alou was the manager of the Giants. And John Miller had said a similar kind of a thing. So John told me that he went down to tell Felipe the next day, Felipe, I apologize. I didn't have all the information, and I said something that made it look like you made a mistake in what you did, but you didn't. And I'm going to correct that. And Felipe says to John, do you think I give a shit what you say? I played baseball. I've been playing baseball in the Dominican since I was 4 years old. I've been a player. My two brothers were players. I'm a manager now. You think I care what you say on the radio? I don't give a rat's ass. One way or the other. And that's the way it has been. With me, to apologize, most guys would say, I don't care. So here we are. And I can't saddle up to Dan because I don't think he likes me. And so Hudson, who made him laugh a lot, and Hudson made me laugh a lot. And he puts his arms around him and said, buddy, we're going to be out here for a long time. Why don't you just go? How about this? He says to the producer, what if Dan puts his number 14 on, home Charger jersey? He wouldn't do that for almost anybody, but he'll do it for Hudson and Bauer. Right. Dan, what do you think? I'll do it for Hudson and Bauer. And the best part was the producer said, who's Hudson and Bauer? They're the team here that you're coming to do the commercials for on the radio that's paying you all this money to fly out from Boston, for God's sakes. I slipped my mind. So Dan goes inside and he puts on his jersey, and it was fascinating. And then I'll shut up. So Dan goes in a 5-step drop, and he's bouncing, and he's looking for Hudson and Bauer both on passes, and the cameramen are shooting at different angles. And the producer says, hit Mac in the head. Can you do that every single time? Sure. And I thought, yeah, right. But this goes back to what you're talking about, how great this guy is. Yeah. Goes back, throws the pass about 30 yards, and Mac said, I got it. Boom. Right in the head. Can we do another take? Sure. 5-step drop, bouncing, hissing. I got it. Boom, right in the back of the head. It was uncanny. Now, you've seen quarterbacks, they'll throw it through a tire on a rope and all that stuff. But I think this is more amazing. And on a 30-yard distance, that was Dan. And he put that magic
I practiced against him for 4 years, and it was a marvel. But, his receivers were spectacular, too. What a cast of characters that was. I say cast of characters. I should preface it by saying they were terrific athletes, outstanding football players, wonderful teammates, and they were also characters, all in their own right. Kellen Winslow, Charlie Joyner, and John
Welker, and JJ, and Charlie. And
I'm leaving some people out that I'm going to feel bad about.
Then the tight end is, just a 6'5" wide receiver, and Kellen to change the position forevermore. Yeah. Just a fantastic athlete. So it really was. It was great drafting and just spectacular. I remember when a writer asked Charlie, who constantly had the bad knees and big ice packs like you talked about. Charlie, they never actually, from a medical standpoint, said, what's wrong with your knees? What is wrong with your knees? And Charlie says, they're old, man. That cuts to the chase. To the chase right like that. Oh, God. Okay, where are we? Hey, all sports all the time, huh? No
Yeah.
political crap. No political crap. I think one comment at the top that was apropos, I thought, but no political stuff. I want to try to have 2 or 3 fans left by the time I die. So that was good. But I do want to go back to the coaches, and you mentioned Ernie Van Zampese,
Yeah.
whose nephew works at San Diego State. Last time when I was there at the end, and I thought at birth, just like Jerry Coleman, the doctors took Zamp's ego out. You know what I mean? Whatever the ego would be, it was taken out. Because I thought Ernie was so brilliant in play calling as an offensive coordinator.
Right.
That, as you know, you get to that point where you're assistant at something else, and then you become an OC or a DC, and that's where the head coaches come from, pretty much all the time.
Right.
So Ernie had to know, I can parlay this Air Coryell thing and this Charger offense, which has never been seen before in the National Football League, and I can get myself a head coaching job. And he had absolutely no interest, ego, money, whatever you want, pride, whatever you want to call it in there, of wanting to continue to go up in his profession. And I would ask Sam, hey man, you can parlay this. I have no interest whatsoever.
You know,
I do not care. I do not want to be a head coach. That's a man who, it was no ego. He just wanted to do the job that he loved to do. And my God, how he did it.
And he enjoyed coaching, enjoyed the players' company. He would come over and, when the defense was trying to give a good look to the offense, he'd joke around with us to make sure that we would stay engaged. And, because it was important for the offense to get the look that he wanted so that when Dan would see it on Sunday, he'd know exactly. And not just Dan. There's that Zamp's offense was so intricate in that everybody had to recognize you're going to run a different route depending on what defense you're going to see, or you're going to have a different play completely depending on what defense you're going to see. So he was so even-tempered and patient and bright and so far in the game, and it was just it was remarkable.
I thought Ernie was terrific, and your comment was I forget what the question was in terms of the kind of guys, thumbs up or thumbs down, of these personalities through the years. And when Brady Hoke was in his first year, I mean, he came on with the Hoke rules, how tough they're going to be. If you got to be there at 4 o'clock, if you're not there at 10 to 4, you're late. That kind of thing, And Brady was very much into that. I'll never forget, and that I was very fortunate that I did his television show for the Mountain Network that first year, and he was the same way with me. And I had a very good relationship with him, and he was a big baseball fan. And I'd have him and Laura come to sit with Jerry and I in the booth for Padre games. I'd get him tickets outside, and so I thought I had a good relationship with him. And so it happened that when it was overlap of the football and basketball season, I had to go to Fresno with the basketball. And to do that, I had to change the taping time of the Brady Hoke show at 10 a.m. that morning to a different time to be able to do the basketball game that night in Fresno. So I call him. I say, Brady, I've got a conflict of interest. This is the football coach. This is the way they think. This was the guy who Bo Schembechler was one of his idols at Michigan. Wow. And just like Bo.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, and I said, Brady, we need to change that time so I can make the basketball game. And Brady said, nope. And I thought he was kidding, so I laughed. And he said, I'm not kidding. We can't change the time. If it's 10 o'clock, we do it every week at 10 o'clock. So he's giving me that same coaching stuff that he would dictate to players to a guy that I thought had a good relationship with him, is doing things for him and so forth. Quid pro quo. And nope. I had to have somebody else do the show, somebody at the San Diego State administration do the show. And I was pissed. I mean, I understand coaches are like that. The guy I was thinking of, the guy who had the Giants for a long time, who was really big in New York on the rules. But he had success. But the players, I'm sure, were not that fond of him, that kind of thing, a Bill Parcells kind of relationship.
Right.
But even Brady, with that toughness, I thought when he came back the second time, he was softer, easier. He'd gone through being fired at Michigan, had more humility and that. And I love Brady. I love Brady.
Yeah, as they go along, they get a better understanding of what the whole sports universe is like. They're They might be planet Earth, the most important part of the universe, but guess what? There are things orbiting around you that you got to deal with too, or be aware of, and they figure that out. And I think they figure out after a while, yeah, I guess I don't have to be a prick. You know, I can answer 10 questions.
No, it's true. And I did the Eagles television, like I said, when Dick Vermeil was the head coach. And not that Dick was a bad guy. He's not at all. A really easygoing guy, but practice. I thought when they got to that Super Bowl in '80 or whenever it was, I thought their legs were dead. I thought their legs were gone. He just always thought that if we're out working somebody, it's going to pay off on Sunday. And this was a Super Bowl. And he just did practices I thought were too hard. I'm not in a situation where I would do a commentary and say, hey, I've coached for 5 years and I can do that. But I just thought that's what he did. So I did the Dick Vermeil show on Thursdays because it was at the same station that carried the games, carried the Dick Vermeil show, and I was the host along with Dick. And so he would come, be so tired, and his only night off was Thursday that he would spend with his wife and daughters for dinner. He would never go home. He would be in a cot in his office every other night, thinking that, hey, if I'm not working, somebody's out there outworking me. And he made his assistants crazy by overworking them, his players by overworking them. I put Bud Grant on one side and Dick Vermeil on the other. And Grant thought, hey, it's hunting season, man. I'll be there when I get there. Oh, a nice short practice. I'm going hunting, but we're going to still be great. And those Vikings were. And Dick was very, very good. They were never great, but he was work. He would come and he would tell me, Ted, just tell me what you want to do. He was literally falling asleep. And he would sit. This was a show in front of a live audience at the studio in Philadelphia. And he would say, just run me through the segment, what we're going to do. He had to put it in his mind and think about it because he was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And we were going to tape the show, play it on Saturday night. And his wife was waiting for him with his daughters and waiting to go to dinner. And if he fell in a soup or fell on his face in the salad, I would not be surprised because he was just exhausted. And I think that reaches diminishing returns, in terms of what you're going to get out of your players. Would you, as a player, would you agree with that or not?
I agree. Yeah, it's a concerted effort. Everybody has to be pulling together and pulling with the same amount kind of energy. I have to talk about this coworker of mine one time who would have a hit at 5:20 in the afternoon, and it was a segment called Leitner Strikes. You might know the guy. But he would
love that segment.
He'd come sprinting into the newsroom at about 5:19 or maybe 5:18. And Rich Rudy was his producer at the time. And Rich, God bless his soul, Rich would have a number of tapes lined up and he'd explain to this guy, Leitner, this is what I have. What are you talking about? Or you'd maybe call him on the way down. And he would, I don't know if he had cell phones back then or not, but he would have a tape ready for you. And you would sit down on that seat and you would have a Leitner Strikes. How long are they? 60 seconds long or a minute and a half, 2 minutes?
No, that's 60, yeah.
I think we need to have a Leitner Strike segment here. So in the future, I want you to have we'll close on a Leitner Strikes.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Yeah, that started in Hartford.
I'd love to be Becker going like this.
That started in Hartford. For Post Newsweek. They came up with the Leitner Strikes, and then we did it when I came here. The news director wanted to call it For the Record, and I said, "Why?" He said, "Because it has a lightning bolt on it for Leitner Strikes, and we have a professional football team here named the Bolts.
Yeah,
and it would be kind of maybe a conflict." I said, "It won't be a conflict. Don't know. It's my opinion. It's not the opinion of the Chargers." And so we talked about it, and we did change it to the Leitner Strikes here.
Yeah. So the same news director, when I suggested that maybe when you're not in town and I'm doing the sportscast, maybe that I should have that segment. He said, "Who did you call it? Pillow fight?" It's not the same. No, Jim, you're not going to do that segment. It's just do the sportscast.
Also, Jim, I think back on those days. We were young.
Oh yeah.
And happier. Were we happier or not? I don't know. I don't know. I appreciate 1,000 times more everything now. And I think that's typical when you get to the toward the end, if I can put it that way.
I think back to the newsroom. I think back to the newsrooms that we worked in, and the amount of talent at Channel 8
So
and
much talent.
Channel 7 for me. Just people really knew the business of reporting, producing, directing, and it was nice because in our case, they got out of our way, not our coworkers, but the management and the news director, the show producers. We did our own thing, and it was. I think they were relieved to have like 4 minutes they didn't have to worry about. But we worked with some really talented people, and I look back at it.
Incredibly talented. No, it was incredibly talented. And our news director, Jim Holtzman, was a great eye for talent, just like in football and baseball. Great eye for talent, was very good at it. And most of his people worked out, and his newscasts worked out. And when he first got there, Jim hated consultants. Every football teams, basketball teams, everybody's got consultants. Television news has consultants, and Jim always fought the bit. I don't want this consultant, but the CEO said, "Hey, get the ratings up, and you won't have a consultant, but you have to have a consultant because we need to get the ratings up. We'll make more money."
Yeah.
So whatever book it was, they call book as the rating period, the book, and it was amazing.
They picked 4 months out of the year, and each different month.
There's one in November, one in May, and the one in May is more important because you sell off that book.
You sell advertising off that book, and then the amount of advertising determines how much money Leitner gets, and then
exactly.
How much money Leitner
and then if there's anything left for the rest of the people, then they'll distribute that.
How much money was left over for the rest of us? Which wasn't much.
Exactly. Good point. And if I had Chris Meyer, the owner of Channel 8, tell me one day at lunch.
Yeah.
You know, I've paid you a lot of money. If you had stopped getting married and held on to it, I would have felt better about you. I said, I'm stupid. What can I tell you? I just am. Chris, I'm just stupid. And so I don't have that money that I earned, but I sure did earn it at the time. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, we're all happy for you.
So I was trying to remember where I was going with that. But
So interrupt you again.
No, fine. No, you can anytime. I just trying to still remember when I had when I was on a 1-year contract, and I think that's where I was going, and it was up after the first year. There was no option to pick up, so it was going to be over after 1 year. And so they had told Jim, "You're getting the consultant. Tough. Work with him." And then that May, whatever year that was. And maybe 79 or 80, in May, the book comes out. We're #1 for the first time in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy and so forth and so on. And Jim goes right to the CEO and says, "Okay, we're #1. You're going to come through on your promise?" "What promise?" "That we don't have to have a consultant in TV news if we're #1." Because the consultant happened to be there for meetings at that time. So Jim had gone through days of that crap, gritting his teeth. And and then Jim says to him, "So no more consultant? I'll tell you what, he's here. 2 things. He needs a ride to the airport. And when you give him a ride to the airport, you can fire him. I don't have to mess with it. Deal?" And Jim says, "Yes, deal." Jim takes him. "Come on, I'll give you a ride to the airport." And he drives him down to the airport, and they get up there. They pull up to the old Terminal 1 when there was no Terminal 2, of course. And Jim says, "Just want you to know they're not going to use your services anymore." They, this is me, they're not going to use your services anymore. And we're #1. I'm sure you did a lot to help us with that. I appreciate it very, very much, but we won't be using it anymore. But Bob didn't say anything about that. Bob told me to let you go. And so it's been nice talking to you.
Wow.
Every television executive, television news executive I tell that story to is like, just, "Oh, of all the things I'd love to do, fire my consultant." What could be better? What could be better than that? What a great story.
Before we leave this topic, you mentioned some names there. Jim Holtzman was a brilliant news director, but he brought along some people that, like you, he gave you free reign. Hal Clement went from
Clement's a heavyweight. Hal's a heavyweight. Sports and news.
Liz Purcell, great reporter. Laura Nancaro, another great storyteller. John Kalia, Reed Galen. people who went on to have network success.
Mhm.
And it was, Jody Hammond. He would bring people in, and he
Right.
would let you do your thing and express yourself. And it was a great atmosphere to learn for me under, and that was fun.
Terrific. Great point. Great point. And it really is like that. It's like a head coach, and he's the head coach of the news,
Yeah.
has to know that this guy does it his own way, and this guy does it his way. You got to let him work. Don't coach him to death, and do that. Some people do that. Jim did not do that, and it was just awesome in that capacity. And Hal had been the sports guy at Channel 10 when I came to be the sports guy at Channel 8. And then he had worked, because Jim worked at Channel 10 with Hal. So that was natural that eventually when Hal wanted to come over and be the news anchor and leave sports, or come over, I think, or did he come over to do weekend sports? I'm not sure how the timing, the chronology of that. But whatever he did, eventually Hal became a terrific heavysweight news anchor after being a fantastic sports guy.
But he was always a great storyteller too. And when the stories, but the other thing, Holtzman was so creative. He had Susan Taylor filling in for me when I couldn't fill in or wasn't available to fill in for you. Mm-hmm. And so Susan Taylor would come out, and she's not a huge sports fan. She would nail it. No. I'd get calls from people saying, "Hey, listen, take more time off. I like this Susan Taylor doing sports."
No, it was just we had Dawn Fratangelo.
Yeah,
I forget where she was in terms of market, but she came, did the 11 o'clock news, I believe only, I'm not sure, and left to go to NBC and work at NBC in Chicago, anchoring the NBC owned and operated station there, and the NBC station then in New York, and was doing updates on the network news.
And I think she had come from Idaho or something like that. She was
small station, and she had such talent and developed so much. Typical of Jim, like a baseball MGM or a baseball scout that could see her now in Idaho or wherever, and know she's going to get great. She's going to really be good, and just let her work. Give her some instruction, not too much. And Jim was brilliant at that. And Dawn it was heartbreaking for me to tell you this, for those of you in the market that might not know, in the community. But Dawn had an aneurysm in her brain while she was working at NBC in New York, and had to relearn how to talk, relearn how to walk. And then it happened again. And long story short, it wiped out her broadcast career. And it was just heartbreaking, heartbreaking. And you look at something like that, and it's literally there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Yeah.
That those things happen to someone. Michael Tuck, rest in peace, also had meningitis, having an operation for meningitis, and he stroked out multiple times during the operation, and his career in terms of how he spoke was over. And so it happens to others, and you think, why them? Why not me? And if you're lucky enough not to have that, whether you're a belief in God or a belief in something else, I don't know. But you're right, Jim had such talent that he put together. It's one of those things, we called it Camelot. With the Padres and Channel 8, we called it Camelot, with that line in the song, in that one brief shining moment in Camelot, where we knew you'd never work for a TV station operation like that again, or a KFMB radio like that again. You'll never work like that. When the Padres had John Moores, Larry Lucchino, Charles Steinberg, and Mike D, and so many others. Sammy Kennedy was in marketing, who's now the CEO of the Boston Red Sox, as Mike D was before him. That's the kind of talent. That was Camelot.
You mentioned those names, and on the broadcast side and on the Padres side, and my recollection of all those people is of them smiling. They had confidence. They had a good attitude. They were warm, engaging, friendly, outgoing. They weren't insecure. They weren't looking over their shoulders. They were doing their job, and they wanted to make you feel at home doing your job. Do you see what I'm trying to say? They were just good, solid people, on top of being really talented at what they did.
That's exactly what I was saying earlier about the coaches here, Padre managers, San Diego State football and basketball coaches, Charger coaches. everybody I worked with all those years, there wasn't one guy I really had a real problem with or ever had an argument, cursing at ever each other or raising a voice. Never with any of them. And in the midst of that, I get one of the great human beings and coaches of all time, Steve Fisher. And then I get his replacement, Brian Dutcher. And I get to work with Don Coryell. I get to work with Al Saunders. I get to work with Norv Turner, who I thought was a terrific human being.
Absolutely.
I go up and down every single sport, Jim, just like we had in television and radio at KFMB. And then I had later at 1090 and think, you are so freaking lucky. So lucky with these coaches, and nobody's busting your stones and nobody's calling you at 3 a.m. and complaining. I had that happen at Oklahoma. Barry Switzer called me. I had an interview with a guy who left Oklahoma to go to UNLV. Michael Thomas, a running back who then subsequent to leaving Oklahoma, led the nation in rushing. So I get an interview with him, and in there he's bad-mouthing Oklahoma. Now, hey, I do the Oklahoma games, just like with the Padres and the Chargers. I do the games, but when I'm on television, I'm reporting. I can't pull the punches and not say it. Right. So I have an interview with Mike, and he bad-mouths Oklahoma. And Switzer calls me at 2 o'clock in the morning. How the hell could you put Mike Thomas on? This guy's a head case. He's this and that and this and that. You're supposed to be with us. You do the games. You do the football games. You do the basketball games. And you're on Channel 9 doing the television. I said, listen, Barry, I have to keep everybody happy, but I have to keep the audience happy more than anything, more than the coaches, more than executives. I got to keep the audience happy. That's who keeps your career. That's who gives you a job by watching you or viewing you on television. And Barry didn't buy that know-how and said, bullshit, and hung up on me.
Wow.
And so it affected my not that much. I mean, it typically affected it for months. And then it became, hi, Barry, how you doing? Hi, Ted. And we were fine the rest of our time there. But I had none of that with all the teams I've been associated with in San Diego and those great executives in television and radio. Thank you, God. Thank you so much.
Well, speaking of that, Ted, I just happened to notice over my shoulder there's a chair, and the chair has like a little cross cut out of it. That's the design in my chairs. And I'm thinking, that's interesting. Ted just mentioned that, and I'm looking at that thinking it's a cross. Thank you so much. So anyway.
Yeah, man. How long, Joe, how long have we been going?
I think we're out of time.
Hour 17.
Hour 17. At 17, it was extra. It was pretty darn good and no extra charge. But I'll show you in this time when things have changed so much in this country. And I'm not talking political, but that's certainly a huge part of it. We're not the country we were. We're not. And in terms of class and attitude, it's still there, although this actually was years ago when this happened. So whether that still happens among employees and bosses now, I don't know. We talked about Jim Holtzman, the news director at Channel 8. During my first year, the CEO came to him and said, I don't like Ted. I don't, he doesn't, he's stumbling around like right now. Well, it doesn't use a script, Bob. So he's just talking to the people, talking to the camera. And I think they'll like that. No, a lot of my friends at the country club don't like him, and they don't like that. So I think when his contract 1 year guarantee is up, we're going to have to get a new sportscaster. Wow. Here's where character comes in. I didn't know this until 30 years later when Jim Holtzman and I were at a barbecue place in North Carolina where he's in retirement. And he said, when the CEO said, we're going to have to get a new sports guy, Jim said to him, well, I understand that. That's your prerogative. When you do that, you'll have to get a new sports guy. Because I hired him. I brought him in here. I'm responsible to him and his family. So if you fire him, you're firing me.
Right.
And they did not do that because of Jim Holtzman having huevos, heart, vision, integrity, and character. Yeah. So it's still out there. It's still out there. And I believe it's still out there now. We just have to get things changed in terms of voting and what people are voting for and whom they're voting for. That's right. Another time.
building on that story, that's one reason I got my first full-time job in broadcasting, because Jim had a sense of humor, and Ted would rant about jocks getting into the broadcasting business. They're not ready, they're not prepared. And so it's been hard a former jock who was trying to get into the broadcasting business who was a little unprepared.
But
For both of us, Ted, gave you lots of material, and I got the gig I needed.
But add on to that, the addendum on that indeed, as you know now, Jim came to me and said, I'm hiring Jim Laszlovic. You guys have a good relationship, sure. And he told me, I'm going to hire him. If you don't want him, tell me now, and I will not hire him. And I said, absolutely, hire Jim. Charger fans love him. Teammates love him. The media loves him. He'll be terrific.
Wait, Ted, wait, I got to go tell my wife. Tell my wife this and show how much we appreciate Susan. No, I appreciate that, Ted. And
I'm not doing this on my back. I'm just saying that was true. That it was part of that Howard Cosell jockocracy, hiring all these retired jocks. Like I said, when they know more than me about the sport, and you guys do, then I listen and I learn. And Jim did say, I'm not going to foster him on you if you don't want him, but that's my plan. You okay with it? I'm absolutely okay with it for the reasons I just enumerated. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad he did. And you've had this great career after the playing career. Yep.
You were so dominant. That's the reason they could take a chance or bring somebody along like me, because you had the bases covered, so to speak. So are we out of time?
We had a great time, and I appreciate you saying that, Jim. I really do. Now that we're in chapter 3 of life.
Yes.
And you remember when you got the AFI, the American Film Institute Lifetime Achievement Award. Sean Connery was 90, and he went up there in black tie, national television, and he said, I appreciate this award so much. People think with my attitude in life, I'm so grumpy that I wouldn't appreciate this. Trust me, I appreciate this, because I must tell you this, the rest of chapter 3 in life is like shoveling shit uphill. And this award really means a lot to me. That's what chapter 3, unfortunately, is like, but you do get to be alive for Jim Laszlovic and Uncle Teddy and our producer, Joe Nelson, the producer Joe, and his podcast. See you next Wednesday. Thank you so much. Be well.